don't see how we can make bigger enemies.
To be offended or frightened of everything.
So you've become like the sort of Tony Scarface of podcasting.
Good morning, everyone. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. Tell your mom, tell your friends, tell your dog too. I don't see why your dog wouldn't enjoy the insanity that ensues at Pantelis Comedy Studios. If you want to support, keep the lights on and everything, patreon.com/Pantelis. Subscribe. Netflix, you heard of Netflix? Trash. Crave? Trash. Amazon Prime? Trash. Patreon.com/Pantelis. And PantelisComedy.com. And we have, of course, the Birdman himself in studio, like every Wednesday. Ted, how you been?
I'm good. You?
Very good, thank you.
Sun's out, guns out.
Yes.
That's a nice tattoo, by the way. How long have you had that?
Since I'm 19.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? Have you had it touched up yet?
No, not yet.
No. I've got one on my arm that I've had for 20 years now. I think I got it in 2004, and I still haven't got it touched up. And the last time I went to a tattoo artist, he said, you don't need to touch that up. He said, those colors are still great. He said, whoever did that did a good job. I got it done at Slick Styled Steel on Saint Laurent.
Okay.
In 2004, and it's still.
Are they still around?
I don't know if you can see it.
Hold on, put it up like this. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, as far as I know, they're still around. There's a Slick Styled Steel, or was at least, in St. Anne de Bellevue, which is where I went to ask if I needed to get it touched up, and the guy said no. He said the guy whoever did it originally did a fantastic job.
I think they did a great job on mine too, because I've been in the sun, no sunscreen, nothing, and hasn't faded one bit. Colors are still good, and the only thing is, when I originally did the cross on there, the guy went too deep, so it's scarred, and now you feel like a few bumps.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to feel your arms, so as far as I'm concerned,
why not?
It's perfect because I don't want. George is not here for the second week in a row, so we have a special guest co-host. Avi Goldberg is here. Avi is a longtime friend and acquaintance of mine who I'm guessing has no tattoos.
I don't. No.
My understanding is, in the Jewish faith, if you get a tattoo, they bury you with the thieves and
Gentiles. Well, that's the word, but I think the truth is, I mean, there are of course plenty of Jews getting the tattoos. And I think most rabbis will be okay with it.
Yeah, they'll overlook it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, well, it's 2024 after all. Avi and I refer to each other as rabbi, even though neither one of us is a rabbi. I'm not even a Jew, but it's always been one of the great compliments of my life that the two of the people I know who've actually lived in Israel both consider me an honorary member of the tribe. I find that to be high praise, Avi.
It's without a doubt, yeah.
And I appreciate it. And the interesting thing about Avi and myself is that we agree on just about nothing. We disagree on most things, but we always disagree in a civil fashion because we come at everything from a position of mutual respect. And in the social media age, there's not nearly enough of that going around. And I think the reason that you and I are able to do that largely is because when we do talk about important things or things we disagree on, we do what we're doing right now. We sit across the table from each other and look each other in the eye.
Do you even remember how we first became friends? I don't know if you do.
Yes,
but
I do.
Yeah. So I wrote a piece. This was back in many years ago when I did do some blogging, wrote a piece. You thought it was... I'm allowed to swear, right? You thought it was shit?
I thought it was pretentious.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know you.
On this podcast, you can even say the N-word.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you can't.
I won't, but that's okay.
Yeah. No, I thought it was pretentious because I didn't know you. Avi's a PhD and a sociology professor. So I read the piece, and it was a piece about sports, and I don't remember exactly what it was about, but I thought this egghead is going way too deep with the way he's framing a sports issue.
My feelings were hurt. I think that was even before people talked about people being triggered, but my feelings were a bit hurt.
Yeah. This was like about
12, maybe
2012, 2013. Yeah.
But so I actually just wrote you a little email. We didn't know each other. I said something like, "Oh, thank you for the feedback, blah blah blah." And you were doing radio on TSN 690 at the time, and I said, "Hey, if you ever want to talk about it." And to my immense surprise, you actually took me up on the offer and invited me on the show.
Yeah, because you called me out. You called and you did it in a civil fashion.
Right.
You know, Avi basically said, why are you being an asshole about this? He didn't say it in those words, but I thought to myself, you know what? He had, he put in the effort and had the courage to say, why are you being like this with me? And I would like to speak to you about this. So I owe it to him to have him on. And
I'm not sure if
we became friends.
Yes, we did. And I'm not sure if I ever told you the story or not, but what you said in terms of the piece being pretentious was just an echo of what my wife Lori was saying anyway. So it's not like I hadn't heard the argument.
I was on board with the missus.
Yeah, exactly. Lori thought this Ted guy, he's right
but
on the
she
money.
knows you know?
Yes.
And it was me jumping to conclusions. It was me making a judgment based on appearances, right?
Fair enough.
The guy's a PhD and he's a sociology professor and he's writing, he's using these $1 million words for a sports article. He's being pretentious. And then I got to know Avi, and I got to know he's not pretentious. This is who he is. So when we needed a co-host for today, I thought to myself, why not have Avi in, and maybe we can demonstrate to people how you can disagree on important issues and not have it degenerate into name calling, which happens on social media all the time because everybody on social media is 10 feet tall and bulletproof, right?
I love it and I hate it. What can I say?
Yeah, it's like the internet. In general, it's the best and the worst of everything.
Absolutely, yeah.
I like the exchange of ideas. I like the access to information, but I hate the way that it can degenerate.
It's funny. I was reflecting on when we first met, just earlier today or yesterday, in prep, just in thinking about coming here today, and we always romanticize the past a bit, but did you, from your memory, was Twitter at that time was quite a bit newer.
It was new. Twitter was new. I joined in 2012.
Yeah, that's exactly when I joined. And it, obviously there was bad stuff, but I think it was a little bit before it kind of descended into much more annoying and difficult. Do you have that sense? Like I got the sense that there was more of an excitement in that early period of time, more people talking. Now it's many years later. Do you remember that period as being a better time or not necessarily?
Not necessarily,
always?
no.
Well, you were a bit different given what you were doing for radio and being in the public eye. So you probably got a lot more pushback.
Yeah, well, and I've always been a blowhard anyway. Like I've not, and my son Sam actually said to me after I lost my last job for saying something that was considered un-PC. My son said to me, Dad, I've always respected the fact that you never sugarcoat it. You say what's on your mind and you stand up for what you believe in.
Yeah.
And, these days that can cost you a job. I got canceled, basically. I can't talk about it because it's in court right now. I got canceled, and that's what happens these days.
I was telling you when we had coffee a few weeks ago. One of the classes I teach is this past semester, last term, I taught a course on popular culture. A lot of students did essays and work on stuff related to social media, and one thing that is noteworthy and interesting is that So these are students who are 17, 18 years old, pretty young. You might think
Nice.
of them. Yeah, very, very nice. Watch it, Poseidon.
See, I told you he'll grab the wheel and put it in the ditch at a
And
moment's
I
notice.
can't afford to get canceled, my man. And I'm not going to get canceled. but you know,
Oh, snorted.
here we
Sorry.
go. Oh,
I was quick with it.
Yeah, that was good. I like it. All right, what were you saying about
I was
this?
just going to say that a lot of the young people in the class chose to write an essay on cancel culture. And
Oh, interesting.
And we might think that, well, all the 17, 18-year-olds on TikTok, they're fast to cancel. They want to cancel, but the truth is they wrestle with it themselves. They recognize some things about it that people do have to be called out, but a lot of them are also saying that they find that it for them it goes too far and they're not
Do you have
comfortable
to?
with
Yeah.
it.
Do you have to destroy somebody's life
Yeah.
or career?
Yeah.
While calling them out, why can you not just disagree with someone,
Or maybe you
without being vindictive about
or
it?
the way I sometimes look at it, which, maybe it's okay if somebody does something that's considered to be very wrong, some kind of punishment, some kind of penalty, take someone out for a while, but should that be the end of a
Yeah,
career?
but who gets
right?
to define what's wrong?
Well, that's the
So,
problem, right?
do you guys both agree we should bring back exile?
Exile from the community, from the city, from
Yeah, like I don't know. We
Solzhenitsyn style. Did I pronounce that right?
I think so. Solzhenitsyn, Alexander Solzhenitsyn.
So like everyone that really acts like weird, like we do, like how the Northern Europeans do, the Norwegians, they have those prisons, but they can roam free. It's like a little village. They can do whatever they
Like a
want.
gulag?
Yeah, but no, not like the Russians do. That's cruel. But I mean, in Norway, if somebody commits a crime, even murder, they get their own apartment. But it's like
I didn't know that.
it's this little-
Separated.
Yeah, they're separated
Yeah,
from society,
yeah.
but they still get to live like human beings, just not with society. They have their own little prison village, as you
Okay.
call it.
So it's like an upscale prison.
Well, like one student, but one honestly really bright student said in class a few months ago, isn't cancel culture kind of like that? It's just that who's deciding? It's the people who are able to get the most follows and the most attention directed at some poor individual.
Well,
who,
I believe that we live in a culture right now where 1% of the people make 99% of the noise, and the other 99% are too afraid to say anything because they don't want to be canceled. So the 1% gets to dictate the rules.
It's difficult. It was something that when I first got on social media and Twitter and all that stuff, that was exactly one of the things I was most interested. Like that whole thing. Like, oh, do I say what I want to say, or do I say what I'm going to say because I'm expecting how other people are going to think about it? And it's tough. But is that also so unlike? You said your son says that you'll say whatever you want to say, but in every social situation that's not online, will you always 100% say exactly what you want to say?
Not in every social situation,
Right.
no.
Yeah.
But I mean, to a large extent, that's what social media is for. It's a place for us to express our opinions
Sure.
and our ideas. I just wish that the exchange could be more respectful. And I'm guilty of disrespecting other people on social media, but I would like to think that I don't fire the first shot.
Right.
But as soon as somebody takes a shot at me, especially someone who's anonymous, who won't put their name, who doesn't have the courage of their convictions to put their name to their opinion,
which is
all bets are off.
Listen, I'm not sure if people agree or disagree with this idea, and not to get too annoyingly sociological about it, but tell me what you think about this. We complain, all of us, many people complain about how rude people are to each other on social media. But let's be honest. I think that people have fun in that rude exchange. Don't you think fun is an element of it? I think people, it's like drama, but like on this stuff, right? It's not high school drama in a school, in the hallways, in the corridors, in the classrooms. It's we as grown-ups or whatever, we have our own drama through the social networks.
Yeah, but I think fun and respect are disrespect are mutually exclusive. I don't think disrespecting people or being disrespected is ever fun.
Right.
Like I come away from too many social media exchanges with a feeling in the pit of my stomach,
Yep.
like I'm pissed off and I'm not serene, you know. And I'm 27 years sober. Serenity is something that I'm supposed to be good at.
Yes.
At this
Yes.
point, but it's
Yes.
you never get all the way there. I know the tricks. I know what I have to do to stay serene, and getting into hostile exchanges, whether on social media or in person, I'm not supposed to go down that road. Let me ask you this: you had mentioned about the 17 and 18-year-old kids that got Poseidon quite excited.
Careful now.
So you've been teaching sociology now for over a decade, right?
Even longer.
So you've gone through a full generation. You've gone from one generation to another.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
100%.
so you said the kids who wrote the or the young people. I don't want to call them kids because they're young adults who wrote the pieces on cancel culture. Wrestled with it. Is the pendulum? Was the pendulum in one place and is it swinging towards another place? Do you find?
I think you have different things that happen at the same time. I'm not sure about that. It's one thing that I think that is interesting with this current generation, which is different from, I don't know, maybe Poseidon's generation. Are you a millennial? You call yourself a millennial?
Yeah, 100%. But the thing is, I'm a weird barometer because I like to stay current. So I'm very I feel like I'm close to the newer generation, like a way of speaking that. But I also come from a generation where I'm not really a millennial. I'm a little more old school because I hang out with a lot of older people.
An older millennial, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm this weird mix. I'm
like sort of like Gen X / millennial kind of thing.
Yeah, but I've also got a bit of Gen Z in me because I like the new generation because some of them are really hardcore. So I gotta.
Is that what our youngest daughters would be, Abby?
I think Gen Z, Gen Z. And now my Gen Z daughter, who is just turned 17, is now starting to complain about the next one, Gen Alpha. Which
is that the next one coming along is Gen Alpha?
What I'm trying to say is I'm coming out as a transgenerational, basically.
Okay.
That's good. That's healthy. That's good.
You can identify as any generation you want to.
Sometimes when people talk too much or I don't feel like talking, I identify as the silent generation.
There you go.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
but I was going to say that, so when I had that earlier generation of the so-called millennials, it's funny, they didn't participate as much in class discussion. They certainly didn't talk that much about their own views of things. But
are they not the ones that began, are the millennials not the original woke, quote unquote, generation?
My sense of it is that it's a little bit more of a Gen Z thing. I mean, millennials, I think, got really into environmental stuff. I think that and millennials are known to be obviously not obviously, but very cool with LGBTQ stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the more wokeness, I don't know what you think about it. I think it's a little more that Gen Z generation. A little, right. I'm not sure.
Well, I guess it would also depend on what you define as woke as well.
That is a hard question. Yeah.
We have so much to disagree on, Abby.
But I'm not sure if we're disagreeing.
No. I was just setting up the plug for the bagel place.
Yeah, I've been waiting for those, man.
Abby
Holy
brought
shit.
some cheese bagels. Let's open that bag up, and why don't you plug the shop?
We're 18 minutes and 30 seconds in, and I've been staring
and we haven't
at
eaten
those.
yet.
I'm not sure if this is being picked up by the camera, but
it is.
Nice.
You can lift them. Yeah,
there we go. Nice little bakery nearby in Côte Saint Luc called Nosher's Bakery. Lots of good stuff. Lots of Jewish stuff.
They're like horseshoe bagels.
Yeah.
Should I bring one over to you?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, sure.
Bring one over to him.
Thank you.
Baked this morning, no doubt.
Thank you, sir.
No doubt. Enjoy.
Oh, they're very flaky. I'm gonna have to vacuum
the
after.
sugar's gonna fall all over you.
Yeah, we're gonna make a mess here.
Yeah.
We're gonna make a mess here, Poseidon.
But you have to be honest. You might like it. You might not like it. It's an acquired taste. I don't know.
I like it.
Yeah. What's not to like about?
Like I said, heat it up a little bit, and it's probably a little bit better. But
I always like Jewish baked stuff.
Jewish baked goods.
Yeah.
I
remember-
Knishes.
Oh yeah.
Dawson had when I was at Dawson. Dawson had some kosher stuff, and I was.
Sometimes you went for the kosher stuff.
Yeah.
We're actually, if we were to do a land acknowledgement for this podcast, we would acknowledge that we are on the sacred land of the Jewish schmata business.
industry.
Yeah.
Shout out to my mother-in-law who spent.
Oh, yeah?
I think she was doing some work there.
Is that right? Yeah. Well, this studio is in. This is one of the old sewing factories, I believe, is it not? From back in the day. And then everything went overseas, and the whole world. The whole
looks
world
pretty
changed.
snazzy in here right now.
It's
what are all these fancy stores up here?
Well, it's nice. Well, the guys have done a nice job with the studio. Okay, I want to take a bite of this, but let me.
Oh, you still haven't taken a bite out of it?
No. While I'm chewing, I want you to explain, Abby, why you feel that you and I are not going to agree on the Olympic boxing controversy.
Here he goes with the tough one first. Good.
Well, you know what?
Get
we
the
may
tough
as well.
one out
Yeah,
of the
we
way.
might as well because
get the
this
tough
is
one out of the way.
This is big. So, and you had mentioned on in response to someone on social media who is the epitome of the type of person I have no respect for.
Okay. I'm not.
Anonymous account. And has nothing but insults to offer, and is a failed broadcaster. And I think that's part of the reason.
I'm not jumping in.
Part of the reason they don't like me is because they're a failed broadcaster, and I had a successful 45+ year career. Yeah. Anyway, after that exchange the other day, I blocked them. But you had said this is one I don't think the rabbi and I are going to agree on.
And
so
why is that? Oh boy. How much or how little are we going to talk about it, and how deeply? No, I mean, look. So we're talking about the Olympic controversy with the boxers. Where would I start? It's funny, as I was also reflecting on this. What would I start? What would I say? Do you know? One thing here I go with my paper because I like to scribble little notes.
That's fine. That's good. I should have brought a notepad myself.
Do you know? If we listen to sort of the politicians of today, especially more conservative politicians, I think we hear it more in the States than in Canada, but I think we do hear it a little bit more in Canada as well. One term that's used a lot, not necessarily in relation to sports, but it's relevant to this issue. This is one of these hot terms, and everybody's throwing it around. If I say to you, gender ideology, does anything come to mind? Like, do you have a sense of what people are saying? I know I sound like pedantic.
I immediately think gender ideology. I immediately think transgender in that debate.
Yeah, exactly. Poseidon, anything come to mind? I don't know. Transgender. Gender ideology.
I was trying to think of something funnier, but yeah, the same thing as Ted. Yeah.
Like so you could hear conservative politicians, especially in the U.S. right now, saying the schools are teaching gender ideology. Okay, like the schools are teaching everybody that it's okay to be gay and it's okay to be trans. So they call that but is gay a gender? Gay, well, it gets
more of a sexual orientation,
but it could also relate to how one wants to present oneself as either a man or a woman. Like it gets very complicated.
Well, to me, gay is a homosexual man.
Yeah, for sure.
Lesbian is a homosexual woman.
No,
that's not a gender issue to me. That's that's a sexuality issue.
But it could relate to gender in the sense that if I am a gay man and if I happen to act quote unquote flamboyantly, which is what we consider, we traditionally or stereotypically think that gay men act that way. You're not only questioning, someone might not only be not comfortable with my sexual orientation, but somebody might also say that, oh, well, that's also not a real man. He's not demonstrating manly characteristics because he's a little bit softer. You know what I'm saying? So that kind of covers not only the sexual orientation part, but also the gender expression part. But the point is that so a lot of conservative politicians are really focusing on this idea that the society is in a lot of trouble because we're teaching gender ideology. We're teaching our young kids that it's like Ron DeSantis, right? The governor of Florida. So he was a lot in the news in the last year or so. And he's, he has banned the discussion of questions related to gender in, I think it's elementary school, kindergarten to grade 6 or 7 or whatever it is down there. But the point is that he's saying this is all because of this woke fascination with gender ideology, that that there's no such thing as male female, that male and female doesn't mean anything, that everything's open, anything. So you asked me why are we going to disagree? I think we might disagree because from a sociological way of looking at things, sociologists tend to look at it almost in the exact opposite way. Gender ideology for us is not really something that is about like promoting fluid identities. And no sociologist is going to say that, oh, the world is out there, trying to teach everybody to be trans or teach people like that. That's not really how it works. We would say more like we're all in the process of kind of putting ourselves in relation to the traditional, maybe we would even use the traditional gender ideology is this idea that's almost impossible to argue against. This is where I'll see if we'll argue or not. It's almost impossible in many situations to argue against the idea that there's two sexes, that there's more than just two sexes and two genders. So in other words, the traditional way of thinking is that male, female, that's quote unquote the normal distribution of human beings. With male, female, then there's also masculinity, right? If you're male, you grow up to be masculine. And if you're female, you grow up to be feminine and you express yourself with femininity. But from a sociological perspective, that idea of what they call the binary, right? Two gender, right? Sociologically, it's always been a lot more mixed up than just two sexes and two genders. Like if we look historically, if we look cross-culturally. So I know this is already getting a little bit annoying.
Yeah, I'm gonna write a letter to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I will be canceled.
No. I'm teasing.
You're
I'm
thinking,
teasing.
Like,
No.
How could a 17-year-old sit through a class like this? But so if I just bring it to the Olympics, I mean, part of this controversy is about, so what is the reality about two sexes, two genders? How do we talk about it? A boxer like Iman Khalif, I hope I'm saying her name right.
Iman Khalif, I believe.
Iman the queef or whatever.
And Khalif,
there he goes again.
So quote male anatomy, traditionally male anatomy. In the society, most people will say, many people will say that's a man, that's a male. We look at this sociologically and we take a lot more factors into consideration. Which we may or may not talk about here, but we would question this automatic assertion that, just because she may, for example, have XY chromosomes, we would in the sociological study of gender and society, based on history, based on culture, based on science, we would question the idea. We wouldn't just automatically accept that, well, just because she may have, and again, I want to make it clear, to me personally, I'm not willing, like I've done a fair amount of reading about this in the last couple of days. I personally don't feel comfortable declaring with certainty that she has XY. I have a feeling we'll disagree because I think you have your opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm not ready to say that I know for sure. I'm also ready to say, like, I'm not really sure if I care, right? Whether she does have XY or not. So here are some points on which for sure I'm sure disagree.
Because I do care because I think, for starters, I think that I don't agree with the idea of prioritizing somebody's gender identity and at the same time compromising the physical safety of an opponent.
Right.
I think the physical safety of the opponent should be paramount. And when you look at Imane Khalif, when I look at her / him, I see a man. I believe what my eyes are telling me. And even if that's a biological woman, there's something off there that's giving her an unfair physical advantage and potentially compromising the safety of her opponent. I'm not being
I hear you. Yeah.
And I've seen more evidence, and the evidence pardon me, choking on the bagel.
Have another cheese
there's no
that's my weapon.
You're trying to kill him. There's nothing conclusive either way, but everything I've seen, and I'm basing virtually everything at this point on the reporting of Alan Abramson.
Yeah, I read the piece.
Who is a former NBC and Los Angeles Times sports reporter and a journalist who's covering his 13th Olympic Games. He's a credible, award-winning journalist. And his reporting, all the anecdotal and scientific evidence that he presents in his reporting suggests that this is a biological male.
Meaning XY chromosome.
Yes.
XY chromosome.
Yes.
Right.
This is what the tests taken by the International Boxing Association show, although they have not shown the tests in detail, but my understanding is they can't without the permission of the fighter and or the National Athletic Association of the countries representing their fighters. Yeah. So do they have? Why are they not agreeing to show the
You
test?
mean why the fighters are not? Yeah.
So I just have a little thing to add. I find it weirdly suspicious that Iman Khalifi, the Khalifi, whatever, came out and said, like, you know, I am a woman and there's that, but then when asked to release the tests and whatever, refuses. That's a little bit suspicious.
Right.
Just on
suspicious or sus? Which would you say? Sorry.
Me, I like saying suspicious because I like adding a bit twang to it, like
And
suspicious.
Khalif and the other boxer who's managed to avoid the limelight to a much greater extent than Khalif for whatever reason, the Taiwanese boxer, they were both disqualified from the 2023 World Championships on the basis of these tests that are said to have shown that they have XY chromosomes. The Taiwanese boxer did not dispute or appeal the disqualification. Khalif did, but subsequently withdrew the appeal, and there's been no explanation as to why.
So just from a detective standpoint, that's suspicious from the get-go. Now, that's the first point I want to make. The second point is, even in men's boxing or men's MMA, UFC, whatever, there are rules. If you're too heavy, if you don't make weight, or if you're too tall, you have a very big height difference, you don't get paired up. There's classes specifically in order to keep people from dying or getting severely hurt for the future, going back to what you said. So because there's these rules, now I don't care if she wants to box. If she wants to box in your own category. Why go?
Well, she does box within her weight category.
Yeah, but she has something that gives her an advantage over the other women.
That we can talk about that more in a few moments, but that's debatable.
I'm talking about it from a rule standpoint, from how the boxing and UFC association is all structured. Why not fight? I don't know, maybe heavier women, or you know.
Well, I think that's an interesting question. But let me go back just one thing to Abramson. What's his name? Now,
Alan Abrahamson.
I mean, I read,
probably pronounced Abramson.
Like I read the piece that you shared, and it's an interesting piece. Does he always write for that site, 3Wire or whatever?
That's his site.
That's his site. Okay.
Yeah.
So he says in that piece, and again, I'm just asking questions here. I don't know. Like he says that his site or he has actually the tests, right? In that piece,
he says he has seen the tests.
So let me ask you, as somebody who's been working in the media for a long time, I mean, I think in that piece he doesn't quote it verbatim, but he kind of describes a few parts of it. Why does he not release them?
Why would because he would open himself up to legal action, and presumably from the fighters.
Yeah.
Like he's. You know, they're confidential.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example.
I assume that the IBA, and, you know, if you're reading between the lines, he's obviously on the same side of this argument as I am. He does not believe that Khalif should be allowed to fight other women. Right, and so I assume the IBA showed him the test results,
I'm not
he
sure.
can't release them.
But Poseidon, look, and this, by the way, is another interesting question that a lot of students ask. Because younger kids, you were asking before, like, are they maybe, you're asking,
is the pendulum swinging
Is the pendulum swinging? But one thing that's interesting about these young, and this is one reason why I really enjoy talking to them about stuff like this in the classroom, because they are the people of the next generation, all that stuff. And I think that a lot of the stereotypes that we hear in social media don't apply, in my opinion. But they do, a lot of them do say things like, look, I don't want to prevent fighter X or fighter Y from participating in a sport. That would be wrong, and they would feel bad about that. But some of them tend to agree with the idea that there is a fairness question, and they would like to see sport reformed in a way to create a space, right, where if you are different in this way, that you can ensure that you're creating fair conditions. So I'm just saying I think that's an interesting point.
I'm going to give you an example, and Pantelis brought this up during the intellectuals, and it made me think a bit, and I realized something. My mother worked in farms for her father all her life, a teenage years. So I guess she became a little bit more stronger than other women over the years. Like my mom, she's 5'11", and she has hands as big as mine. Like she scared some men.
Yeah.
When she was younger and more able-bodied, like she was a strong woman. Like I was more afraid of getting hit from my mother than other grown-ass men at school. No, for real.
Yeah.
So makes me think. Like let's say this boxer, right? Instead, if he fought into the male category and then won, but like fought like I don't know, like a lightweight division and then won. Regardless of what he is, wouldn't that be more glorious and rewarding for the fighter than having a major advantage?
How can we say for sure? But and you'll call her a he, and you'll call her a he. Right, I'll call her, but you'll.
Well, you know what?
Listen, to be real about it.
To be respectful, I'll say he, she, because I don't know for sure. And the more I read about it, I had no idea that there can be these anomalies like Caster Semenya, the middle distance runner
from South Africa.
And if you look at the winners at the medal podium from, was it 2020 or 2016?
2016, I believe.
2016, the three medalists
in Rio
in the women's 800 meter track event, they all look like men, and apparently they all have these biological, chromosomal or hormonal anomalies that give them male characteristics, physical male characteristics. And I actually heard a clip of Caster Semenya saying, my testicles don't make me any less of a woman. Apparently they have these internal. It's called different sexual development.
That's right,
DSD.
Exactly.
Is that what it's called?
Or intersex. Either one.
They have external female genitalia, but internal male. Testes, gonads that generate testosterone that give them the male characteristics and the physical advantage. And this is what, from all appearances, is happening with Imane Khalifa.
Again, in my own personal thing, the way I approach these things, like I will go with, I mean, in most cases, I will go with the individual says. Like, who am I to question? So she identifies as a woman.
I think she needs an OnlyFans account. I think that'll settle things maybe once and for all.
But so and this, I mean, look, there's honestly so many ways that we could go. I mean, in with this conversation, and why we would then continue probably to disagree or at least see things a little bit differently. But so what I mean, there's just so many things. Let me maybe I'll come back to that Caster Semenya and the intersex thing in a few moments. But to go back to the idea of, so you're talking about your mom and she has gigantic hands or whatever.
Or
whatever.
Strong lady.
She's strong. Yeah, strong.
Like,
but to you, she's for sure a woman, right? She's
100%.
Exactly.
Well, she gave birth.
but you would you say though that her, she has more some traditionally male. Maybe not characteristics, but you wouldn't go that far. But
not
she
even
is as strong as many
when
men.
you look at her,
like if you look at your mom, you see a woman, right?
You see 100%
if you look at this boxer, Avi, if you didn't know, and someone showed you a picture of Imane Khalifa and said, "Is that a man or a woman?"
Look,
and you didn't know, what would you say?
It's 2024, and to be honest with you, I don't know for sure what I would say. But let me go to a different angle here. We have here in North America, we have our cultural ideas about what women look like and what men look like. Like I saw you're cute. I mean, some of my colleagues or others would trash me for making a joke, like making light of this, but you sent a funny picture of the volleyball players, the women volleyball players, and I forget what your line was, something like, there's no
did you see that? The beach volleyball players?
Because here our women are, sexy, voluptuous, and in the Middle East, they're ninjas.
Well,
there's
but, so my point is, though, that, and again, this is what a sociologist would look at for sure, or an anthropologist, or other social scientists. And this is why, like, I'm being honest with you, like, there's a lot of people, and especially conservative politicians, who cannot stand sociology for this exact reason. Like, this is like at the heart of a real issue here. we would say something like, so in North America or in a more European-oriented culture, we see femininity a certain way, but it has for centuries, and in different cultures, there's a wider, much wider, or a different view about what femininity is, what masculinity is, what a woman could look like, what a woman could do, et cetera, et cetera.
Such as which cultures?
Plenty. You could look at indigenous cultures alone here in North America.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you may have heard or you may not have heard of two-spirited peoples. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of that expression.
Yeah, but then we're going back into anomalies, not the norm.
I don't think that's correct, because we could go to places in Papua New Guinea. We could go to plenty of places historically, over time, cross-culturally. And what a sociologist or an anthropologist might say is that we look at these so-called anomalies today, like in the public, in the social media, in the popular discussion. We'll look at someone like Iman Khalif and we'll say, oh, that's an anomaly. Well, a sociologist or an anthropologist would probably say something like, sorry, it's actually it's just a continuation of what we have always been. We just don't know about it as much.
But
So you would argue you would argue that this may be a natural evolution of the human being.
Well, how can I predict the future? I cannot. But how do we know? Honestly, how do we know?
We do
big, broad shoulders, no breasts. Slim hips, like that looks like a man.
You know, I agree with your son that I think it's great that you say exactly what I think it's amazing. I really do, and I appreciate that you invited me on to talk about it. But again, we're working with right now in this conversation, and it's a friendly conversation. But yes, we're working with our culturally comfortable assumption about what masculinity is and what femininity is. But that doesn't run the limit.
But then you're talking on a social aspect. Like, I'll give you an example. I'm a man, but the thing is, I have piercings, which is a normal, a usual, like a
although not anymore,
thing.
Right?
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's more a fashion statement.
Yeah.
But you could still argue that's the feminine touch to me.
Listen to this question though.
Yeah.
Honestly, and I bet we might have a bit of a difference here. If you were a kid. And this applies to me too. And if you remember being a kid, I don't know if your mom ever said, "Oh, Teddy," I don't know, did she call you Teddy? I don't know, whatever.
Well,
Ted,
when I was real little, I was Teddy.
Hold my purse for me for a moment.
Yeah.
Or as a teenager, what would be?
As a teenager, I'd be probably a little uncomfortable with it.
We would, and I would have also.
Or I wouldn't hold it by the strap.
Yeah, exactly.
I would hold it underneath.
Exactly. We would hold it in some way to make it show that it's not ours and we're not comfortable with it. And by doing that, it would probably make it right. But what are young men wearing all over the place now? All kinds of bags and this.
Yeah.
It's a style. It's changed.
Especially if you go to Europe. I was in Sicily a few summers ago, and I was in the minority because I wasn't carrying a man bag.
Right, exactly.
So, you goddamn homophobe.
What did were you all Jake?
All right, I'm going to buy one on the way home today.
Or let me raise a different type of question here. Now, and I have to also say, I'm not an I feel a little bit, I don't want to feel bad. I was once told
you don't have to be an expert on this show.
So from what I understand, sociology is trying to say that there's male and female, and then whatever androgynous is or hermaphrodite is another sex. Is that what you're trying to say? Because of the whole two-spirited people.
I don't remember the numbers, but in across all human populations, there is a certain number. I mean, you could look it up in a few seconds of people that are naturally born with. That's what they call the difference of sex development,
the DSD,
or intersex. Yeah. And that's a real thing, and that's always existed. So what as communities or societies do we do with it? Well, you will probably see different communities do different things with it. It could be the case that in non-Western societies, they do different things with it than we do. I was talking earlier about what we're referred to, and people still use that term in Indigenous communities today, two-spirited peoples. Indigenous communities had and still have what they call two-spirited peoples. And it could have been anything. It could have been a man who enjoys doing the so-called traditional women's roles. It could be a woman who, rather than being interested in having a partner with a man, was interested in having a partner, being partnered up with a woman.
Yeah, but now we're steering away from the biological aspect of it. Now we're steering away,
okay, fair enough.
Do you know what I mean?
Sort of the social expectations.
Exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
but nevertheless,
but that's fine.
But nevertheless, it still shows that in different communities and at different places and at different times, those two-spirited individuals were full members. Like, we're not viewed as weird or odd, or they were not like what we were talking about before, sending people away to the gulag. They were not sent away to the gulag. They were given the same honors, the same roles as everybody else. So they were never viewed as abnormal. The only time that two-spirited peoples within Indigenous communities began to be seen as a little bit weird and something that should be cast aside, unfortunately, comes from the confrontation or the interaction between European Christianity and Indigenous cultures. Because once you got Christianity in there, then they started teaching about men do what things one way, women do things another way. And then at that point, two-spirited identity became something. But let's go. I can talk about the physical too.
Because I just want to say, like, two-spirited and androgynous is two entirely different things. Like, I have no problem with some dude who's a little more feminine. He wants to do like regular stuff. Like, he doesn't want to do he doesn't want to work in construction. Hell, I get it. I don't want to work in construction. You know what I mean? Like,
most Jews also,
you know what I mean?
Work or can work in construction.
I can completely understand that. I believe
most, not all, but most.
I believe in focusing on what you're good at, and if focusing on what you're good at doesn't mean a traditionally male role in society, who cares? There's going to be other dudes or women, whatever, that are going to be good at that. I don't care about. I'm talking about on a biological aspect.
So let's talk about and again, I'm not an expert, but look, I think there's been a lot of interesting articles that came out. From my understanding, like, we'd have to, what does Joe Rogan say? We have to do our own research. Like, we'd have to do our own research, but there are people who exist. There are in our world probably people that we know right now who are women and who might have and might look like your version of what a woman is and might have XY chromosomes and they don't know it. And even the same with men who have XX chromosomes and they don't know it. That is something that biologically actually exists. There's also, if we really look at it, and again, I
think I got ZZ chromosomes because all I want to do is sleep. I'm sorry.
Two other quick points. In terms of testosterone, again, in our popular culture, like just go on any website and I could go buy some testosterone to make me like a real man and to, and all that stuff. But scientific research is actually not apparently 100% clear about whether advantages in testosterone really necessarily translate into physical advantages. Like it's from my understanding, it's not 100% always verified, even though everyone will say it. And one final thing,
it depends how your body absorbs it. There's a lot of factors. Yeah, 100%.
Another thing I'll just add very quickly, and we're still talking about the
No,
it's okay.
We have to move on to something else. We've been talking about this for like 45 minutes now.
We have, but it's actually interesting. I know I enjoy debating. I like that we can sit here and we have different views and we could debate it.
That's what I like about talking about things with Abby, because when you come at something that you disagree on, but from a position of mutual respect, then you can have interesting, compelling
conversations. I've been called racist once, and frankly, I'm a little disappointed.
Well,
it's a joke.
No. Did you see, J.D. Vance? What was he saying that you're racist if you drink Mountain Dew? Is that what it was? Mountain Dew? He said something about people will say it was a bad joke, which that's a whole other topic, but never mind. Forget it. I'm sorry for killing the buzz. One last quick point about the physical, the biological. I mean, so some sociologists will ask the question and say, like, okay, we have this whole thing about, is it fair to have certain advantages? Like, does Iman Khalif have a natural advantage that puts her opponents at risk? And it's a very good question to ask.
I would say no.
You'd say no?
If you do your job right and you put it into the right weight category and the right division, then no, it remains that it's fair competition to whoever is. It could be a division with larger women. Or it could be a division with smaller men.
But even in her own division, which is welterweight, right? It's not like she was kicking ass throughout her entire career just because she was bigger.
But that can be a skill set issue as well. She's become a better boxer over time.
For sure. But did we ever say, like, Michael Phelps? It's the classic example, right?
Gigantic. Yeah, but nobody gets hurt when Michael Phelps wins.
Sure, but he does.
Nobody gets physically injured.
He does have some natural advantages, does he not? Some people have.
Sure, he does. Yeah.
Some people have.
But no one's safety's compromised, Abby, and that's the bottom line for me. I think we have to err on the side of protecting women from being hurt, or protecting anyone.
I mean, Mike Tyson had natural advantages. He was just much more stronger than everyone, but he was put into the right.
Some people apparently have a greater natural ability to, what is it? You need more hemoglobin to have more energy, or like some
Yeah.
people do process that naturally way above average, and that gives them massive advantages as athletes. So look, all I'm trying to say is that, and trust me, there's more we could talk about as well. But like you said, it's been going on a long time.
Okay, can I say just one last
Yeah.
thing? I think the reason why the big freak out is because instinctually, man, there are some differences on a biological level that kicks in. Instinctually, society wants to protect our women.
But that's not a sociologist would say, and I agree personally.
Yeah.
That's not like a built-in instinct.
I think it's built
that's
in.
a cultural.
No.
I once had a student.
I disagree. I think
Well,
some stuff are
No,
innate.
these are
I
taught.
think even depends like what nationality you're born.
Sure,
I think
of
some
course.
stuff are definitely like
Well, there will be
innate.
different. Yeah,
Because I think
different
the
messages.
DNA holds, anyways.
Yeah,
Back,
no, it's-
back
it's
in
a-
my day, when a woman walked in the room, we'd stand up and hold the chair for her, not try to knock her out. See, that's what I love
Yeah,
about
yeah,
podcasting.
yeah.
No one's
Just-
who's going to fire me for saying that.
So I
and it's a
think
joke.
Right.
So I think the reason why people are up in arms is because we saw a little lady that was in a position of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And then what people see, people don't see androgynous and this and that and two-spirited or whatever. They just see
100%.
a man with
100%.
shoulders and an Adam's apple and like a just basically committing.
Is there an Adam's apple? Has that been confirmed?
Whatever.
That I have
I'm
One
just-
way or the
no
other?
idea.
Because
He looks
that's a
manly.
telltale
Is it a
sign, is it
telltale?
not?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not
Basically committing legal what's it called, domestic
Assault, battery,
legal
domestic
domestic
violence.
abuse.
But you're-
so I think instinctually
Yeah.
people go like, oh, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah. Well, again, I'd have to say not instinctual, but we could debate that the next time. If you have
Yeah.
me back, we could debate that more next time. Let me just a quick segue out of here or whatever. Like you got, of course, you're in comedy. You love comedy. Why are comedians so amazing? Because I always talk to comedians are a lot like sociologists. What do comedians do? They break everything down, right? They
Yeah.
show different angles about things.
Yeah, 100%.
Why are the comedians who are talking about the news, let's say, sometimes able to actually tell more truth, right, than the actual news media, because they have fewer limits and they can actually, raise things that we're not normally talking about. Now, so of course, it leads
And
a lot of
because they
people-
make you laugh about it.
they make
Yeah,
you laugh.
it's
But
a
when
real
you
art.
when
Yeah,
you
it's
see
an art.
when you see a woman getting the shit kicked out of her and you see a man doing it, you're not able to laugh at that. So, because if you laugh
No.
at it, you're kind of like messed up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I think because people aren't laughing at it, they're not like, oh, they're not open to
Yeah.
the discussion of, oh, but is she a woman or a man?
100%.
Whereas
They-
opposed to if it was brought up in a
Yeah.
humorous context, I think people will be like, oh, yeah, man.
Or I mean, our context here is both a humorous context, but also a
Yeah.
semi-serious. And to be honest with you, that's why again the reputation of the colleges and the universities is that it's all I mean, maybe I'm a little sensitive about it, but there's this external idea that college is all about
As someone from
indoctrination.
outside of that bubble, when I look at academia, I think, academia
Yeah,
is.
and-
I think there's a
and
lot of woke indoctrination that goes on in academia.
and I'm saying I'm sure I know that there is that, but that is certainly not all that there is there. Like, not that I'm a great hero or anything, but what I like about teaching is basically the opportunity to try to do exactly this. Like, I want to hear what different people think. We present different things. We talk it out. We don't all
But
necessarily agree.
you're open-minded. You
Most
and I
of my
are
colleagues are as well,
You and
you know?
you and I are on opposite sides of the ideological fence on most things, but you're open-minded, which is why you and I can have a discussion.
Yeah.
I find that not everybody is. Okay, I want to talk about Kamala Harris's. Did I say it right? Kamala Harris's. Sorry,
Kamala.
I don't want to get it wrong.
No,
I don't want to
it's
get in
okay,
trouble.
it's
Kamala Harris's vice presidential pick. I think the story is as much about who she didn't pick as who she
here we
did
go,
pick.
here we go.
Yeah. She picked Tim Walz, the
Yeah,
governor
yeah.
of Minnesota.
Yeah.
And every political indication that I'm familiar with is that the smarter choice would have been Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Because that's a state that people who know more about the American electoral process than me say has to be won. If you don't win Pennsylvania, you don't win the election. So she didn't pick Josh Shapiro, and the prevailing theory seems to be she didn't predict him because he's Jewish, and it would have alienated anti-Israel / pro-Palestine voters. So You're Jewish, and I am fascinated to hear your take on the whole thing.
I guarantee you that my views on this one are probably, quite different from.
Well, listen, so people know, Avi's not a Benjamin Netanyahu loving, right wing, Israel at all costs Jew. Anything but.
That's true, but it's a cliche to say that I do view it in a very nuanced way. Like I don't think I can be put in a box. But look, the Josh Shapiro thing. I think there. Look, I'll be honest with you. Within the few people who I've talked about in the Jewish community, once this whole thing started and she has to pick a vice presidential candidate, and we start to hear some names, and Josh Shapiro is one of them. I mean, quite frankly, I, like probably many people, had no idea that much who Josh Shapiro was, but we watch a few videos, we see how he can talk. He talks really well. He kind of talks even a bit like Obama. I don't know if you've caught that, but he has almost like an Obama speaking style. Like he's a pretty charismatic. Anyway, but a lot of Jewish people I knew right away were like, on the one hand, that'd be great, amazing. On the other hand, it's probably not possible because Kamala Harris's own husband is Jewish.
Yep.
Are you then going to have also a Jewish vice president?
So that's a bridge too far?
Bridge too far. The whole Israel-Palestine
One too
issue.
many Jews. We all know how that went.
But he's being funny, Abby, but should there be a quota on the Jewishness of your
so the question,
personal and political life?
So right away I saw that, no, I don't know. Ideally, of course, there should not be. And it is sad, and it's a hard issue. I saw, and of course the conservatives or whatever, the Republicans I saw this morning, I think Nikki Haley has a tweet or whatever going around chastising the Democrats and Kamala for not choosing Shapiro, and it's a sign that there's anti-Semitism in the Democratic Party, blah, blah, blah. Do I think that there's elements of like a discomfort or even anti-Semitism in relation to this pick? I mean, I think there's some elements of it for sure. For example, a single individual, a Jewish individual, should not be held, let's say, responsible for anything that's going on in any other
They shouldn't be held
country.
responsible for anything but the weather.
Fixing the damn roads or whatever. Is it terrible? But these kinds of but on the other hand, so why did they choose Tim Walz? Like they chose him because they're supposedly not only because they want to avoid something, but because they also want to appeal possibly to white, middle-aged, working class voters who may have voted
Does
for
he
Trump.
have working class appeal? Tim Walz? He's the guy who put tampons in boys' washrooms.
No way.
Yeah.
And what did they do with them?
boys
Put them
have
up their nose
periods
for
too,
no
you know?
He put them in boys' washers?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But maybe
he
it's just
changed the flag of Minnesota
Right.
to look like the flag of Somalia because Minnesota has a large
I see.
Somali expatriate population.
Yeah.
He's woke. He's woke. He is. He's woke.
Well, he might be, but I think he goes in some different directions also. I mean, look, he has the folksy style, right? You can't criticism for implementing whatever it was, school breakfasts in schools for kids or something like that.
I wouldn't criticize that. No, but I'll criticize putting tampons in boys' washrooms.
Maybe it's just so that boys can collect them in case their girlfriends need them. It's like
maybe could be that. Yeah.
Well, it's
probably not though. Yeah.
So, but the question, but anyway, the point is though, is he automatically gonna cause problems for white working class voters? I don't know. We'll have to wait.
I can't wait to see a debate between him and JD Vance because they're both military veterans. JD Vance is a U.S. Marine Corps combat veteran who fought in Iraq.
Yeah.
Tim Walz. When his unit, he was at 24 years in the National Guard. That's admirable military service. But when his unit was assigned to go to Iraq, he resigned from the military. And so his critics say he chickened out.
Yeah.
I don't think that I don't know what his reasons were for resigning from the military at that time. Maybe being deployed at that time was not convenient for him, although service is not a convenience issue. I don't think that he was physically afraid and that they chickened out. But within the military, that's almost de facto desertion.
Sure.
You know, that's like leaving your guys. Leaving your guys on the battlefield when they need you the most. So I can't wait to see the two of them in a debate scenario go at it over military service.
Listen, I think it will be interesting for sure. Listen, this has been an unusual campaign, to say the least, given that Joe, after it was...
Yeah, they pulled, the Democrats pulled an old switcheroo.
Well, yeah, the party that's so concerned about the saving democracy has installed a candidate, has bypassed the democratic process.
Yeah.
She didn't get any primary votes, Abby.
But they created a reasonable facsimile of seeing what the party...
They created something.
Apparently the voters, people say, and I have a lot of time for this argument, people say that the voters for months have been, the regular Democrat supporters for months, have been trying to send their message to the party. Like, we don't want Joe to be the candidate again for the second time.
Do you think they knew before the debate how bad he was going to be in the debate, and that was they just went, okay, get him out there so we can get it over with?
So you mean like the party
the
operatives
Democrats,
or whatever?
did they already know that he was going to bomb in that debate, and it was just their excuse for...
I have to be honest with you,
legitimizing their excuse for getting rid of him?
I think I would not call myself a conspiracy theorist. However, I have a pretty open, my range of being able to consider possibilities is kind of like a large range, maybe.
Larger than it used to be, because mine sure is.
Well, yeah, I would say so. But I honestly, I think it's possible. I really do. I mean, but listen,
who's running the American government right now? Who's making the big decisions right now? Do you think
Joe
he
and his
is?
Team, of course. I know you told me. Am I allowed to say you told me you're a little perhaps concerned about the deep state? You've told me that.
100% I am. It's the kind of thing that I never used to would have believed in before.
There is a deep state. What is the deep state? What is that?
We don't know. That's why it's deep.
It's the swamp. It's the swamp. It's the intelligence community, career bureaucrats.
But is it that those folks, they have their own plan, and their plan is independent of whoever happens
their
to be
plan is what's
in
good.
power?
What's good for them? What's good for them? And the people,
like to make money, to have contacts,
always follow the money.
Right.
Always follow the money.
So, like I said,
you remember Chuck Schumer's quote?
Yeah, something
about you fuck with the deep state, and he didn't say the deep state. He said the intelligence community, which is basically the same thing.
So, but what's
he said they've got 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you.
Well, I do believe that. But what's the argument though that they? So again, independent of who happens to be the president, it is, unless of course you get a new president like Don, who.
That's why they hate him, because he's not.
Because he's gonna get rid of the deep. Is he gonna get rid of the deep state?
No, he's not going to. He couldn't get rid of it last time.
But he's ready now. Apparently, Project 2025.
No,
that's not him.
Really.
That's not his.
Right.
I think they just can't control him.
Are working there. Yeah.
I think they just can't control him.
They can't control Don.
He's
who can't? The deep state can't control him?
Unpredictable.
To say the least, yeah.
So because they don't want somebody that's unpredictable, they want somebody that's.
Wait, you're talking about the deep state doesn't want?
I'm talking about, because here's the thing: in every society, there's the elites, and they always like we've seen this with ancient Rome. We see this now. We see it. There's always people in higher positions that are behind the scenes that can kind of pull strings. That 100% control. No, but they definitely pull strings from behind the scenes. Yes, and I think there's numerous groups. So this whole deep state, people have this idea that, it's just one large group of elites controlling everything. I think it's a lot of small groups of elites, all have personal interests, and they're all trying to pull strings their way, and it's causing this insanity that we're seeing.
Remember the time Trump got shot?
Yeah.
Remember that? What was that?
Wasn't that like just a few weeks ago?
I think that's over 3 weeks ago now. So we've forgotten all about it.
Is that not bizarre?
And nobody talks about it anymore.
Like, how would
we don't know what,
is it not?
What happened. We don't know why there were such huge security breaches, and nobody talks about it anymore. It's over. It's old news.
I have a theory. They hired dishwashers.
Well, I think Ted and I talked about
Bangladeshi dishwashers.
Yeah, I think Ted and I talked about this one already a couple of weeks ago. Also, I mean, like
when we went for lunch.
Yeah, You think that the deep state might have done it, and I think Trump might have done it if it was.
Yeah, but do you think he said to the 20 year-old kid,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
take a shot at me,
Yes.
but wait till I turn my head so you
Yes,
just swing my. I don't
actually.
believe that.
I
Come
do.
on, Abby.
That I believe. I do
Come
believe.
on.
Well, it seems crazy. It seems outrageous, but
It is. It's a lot more outrageous than there being a conspiracy. Do you think that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone? Seriously, do you?
I have to be. No, I think it's a question, honestly, that I would be interested in maybe studying a little more. I don't have a strong opinion of it. I think I don't know.
I'm going to watch the movie again. I have
Which one, JFK?
Yeah, Oliver Stone's movie.
Yeah. No, it was a great movie. It was. What was the assertion there that there was more than one? I can't even remember.
Yeah, I think the assertion there was that it was an enormous conspiracy and that it was the military-industrial complex because if I might be mistaken here, but I believe he was getting ready to pull American advisors out of Vietnam, and that was not good for the military-industrial complex. So
therefore,
he's got to go.
But in terms of the assassin, I mean, maybe from our I think from our older generation, it is also outrageous that nobody's really talking about that at all, isn't it?
Well, they had the Warren Commission, and the Warren Commission concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. I don't know anything about the Warren Commission except that it existed, and that's what its conclusions were. I think that Oliver Stone delves into that in the movie. What I find interesting is that we've gone from a time and a place like, let's say, the late 60s, the Vietnam protest era, where the left was anti-establishment.
Right.
If you were on the left of the political spectrum, that meant you were anti-establishment, and basically you protested everything the government was doing. The left now is listen to the government and do what they tell you to do. Yeah. Like it's a complete flip-flop, and the anti-establishment people are the right-wingers now.
It is wild, is it not?
Yeah.
Look, it's funny in the I don't believe I will sort of change my overall political views as I get older. I think, again, sometimes my wife says, like, aren't you supposed to get more conservative as you get older?
What did they used to say? If you're not liberal when you're 20 and conservative when you're 30, you're doing it. Or maybe it's liberal when you're 30 and conservative when you're 50.
That's
I don't know. But anyway,
My own daughter says she's embarrassed because I'm more woke than she is, and she's 17 and all this stuff. But this idea, though, that the government or the state or whatever you want to call it will make things better. Like I have to say, like I in principle, I like the idea, and I probably will, but I find it hard to believe that that's a realistic goal these days. So for my left-wing brothers and sisters to kind of have the faith in the establishment at times, it is strange how it's flipped over.
I think this probably came up when we had lunch a couple of weeks ago as well, but I know a lot of people my age who were liberals back in the day and very strong liberals back in the day, and now are more on my side of the fence. They're more conservative, and their common refrain is, I didn't leave the left left me.
Yeah. So I would say that, like many of us.
And now there's nothing left.
I mean, people have difficulty with ideas that change. But ideas will always change, and standards will always change. So what did seem to be, or what was liberal in whenever 1970, 1980. Now it's seen as passé, not good enough. And it doesn't, I guess, in terms of thinking about it, in terms of this is, again, something I try to talk to my students about. Like if the ones who are woke, if they have certain political inclinations of today that's different from the ones we had, but I'll get us to talk about, like, how will this actually help? How will it help? Are there not also downsides to it? But we have to expect, though, that, again, standards will, like, as much as we want things to stay the same, what we're familiar with, people change.
Ideological standards.
But also just the facts of living also change. Our communities change. Our cities change. Our our understanding of things change.
Yeah. But just because things change doesn't mean they change for the better.
That's correct.
No, and I don't like the creep towards socialism / communism, because that never ends well. That never ends well.
Look, I think
it ends well for a handful of people.
Listen, in Canada, if we talk for a moment about Canada, like, how do you feel about like a guy? So Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives seem to be, I mean, they're way out ahead in the polls. The election is like a year or so from now or whenever it is, I'm not sure. But he's pushing the idea that, Trudeau is a communist, and he's pushing do you think that will really resonate with a lot? You do.
Yes, I do. And I also think that it's pretty pathetic that that the Canadian left has adopted the American left's strategy of using the word weird. That's their strategy now. We'll call them weird. That's what we'll do. That's so childish. That's so junior high school. It's not going to work. It's going to backfire. It shows they're bankrupt of policies and ideas.
We're gonna see, right, in the weeks ahead if that term is going to stick around. I've already had a few debates with my, I would say liberal types of friends, and they're telling me this is great. This is exactly what we need.
Have you seen this? You know what we're talking about, Poseidon?
No, sorry.
The left-wing media and left-wing politicians and social media influencers, they've all resorted to calling Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, and on this side of the border, Pierre Poilievre, and the
be honest,
weird. Everything is weird now. It's just weird, man. They use the word weird a lot.
Yeah, because they're trying to cater to the younger generation.
Yeah, they're just trying to look. For the longest time, liberals have said like they need a word, they need a way to kind of fight back again. Like, look, we're not going to get into it now, but
well, because they realize attacks don't work, like racist and
or to discuss kind of like you're saying, like to discuss policy ideas or differences. Little hard to break through, right? Little hard, not suitable for TikTok, or not suitable for even a little bit of a deeper discussion. So this weird thing has kind of caught on as kind of like.
But it doesn't. It's not going to resonate with anybody. People see through that. That's just, to me, it's such a blatant demonstration of how you've got nothing. Really weird. That's the best you can do is to call your opponent weird.
Well, so Tim Walz has used that, which is interesting, right? To go back to the VP choice, I think he's being given credit for sort of using this first and popularizing this term.
Oh yeah, he's the originator of weird.
I'm not sure if 100% he's the originator, but he is being given that credit. But I think it's interesting, like rhetorically, politically. So like I referred to the school breakfast thing. And he has said things like it's weird for any politician to oppose school breakfast. Like that's a weird thing.
Well, now, hold on, because now he's using that because because he did one good thing and one thing that is strange, the tampons. So if somebody opposed his policies of the tampons in the boys' bathrooms, he's using that as like, oh, so you oppose everything I do? That's weird to oppose breakfast for kids in school. So he's taking them opposing one thing to, they just oppose me in general, which is that's weird. That's weird to do. So
now I'm getting confused. But I do agree that the liberal, whatever you want to call them, I mean they. Like, look, the right and the conservatives are like, look, I could list so many things and we can't talk about them, but to say Kamala was a DEI hire. Yeah, I'm just gonna make a list of just a couple quick things here. Even going back, the term political correctness, which was a word you used earlier.
Yeah, that was because I couldn't think of anything else to say.
Even the term wokeness. What else? Well, whatever. So the point
DEI,
is that,
what does that stand for?
So you're just diversity, equity, and inclusion. Exactly. So what you're saying is that both sides have their talking points.
I'm saying that,
or their catchphrases.
I'm saying that conservatives have honestly been amazing at coming up with phrases that catch on, and people are really fighting over them.
But at least the conservatives are creative about it, and they come up with, diversity.
But I would,
DEI but weird is just, that's weird. Is that the best you can do? That's weird.
Well, I think people are getting excited about it because it's an easy word. Like, look, how did it go?
I think bizarre would have been a word.
Is it better? How did it go when Hillary in 2016? I can't believe that was
deplorable.
Yeah, I can't believe that was like 2016. How old were you then? Like 14 years old? No. How did that go? Right?
Backfired.
No, big time, right? So I think they feel like this is like a friendlier word, but it will still convey a kind of like an opposition to what the conservative movement is all about.
I was 23. Holy shit.
It doesn't really matter because the Democrats will win in the middle of the night on election night anyway.
You think so?
Yeah, of course they will.
What about 4 days later? What are you talking about? In the middle of the night, they'll win on if the election is on a Tuesday, they'll win it by Saturday. That's when they'll win.
I want to talk about Israel before we run out of time. You have lived there. You're the second guest we've had on this show who lived in Israel, Jeff Kovac.
I'm very sorry to hear that.
Jeff Kovacs, who came in. Jeff came in October 11th of last year, 4 days after October 7th and the Hamas attacks that triggered the latest crisis in the Middle East. Jeff fought with the IDF. He went back over after October 7th, re-enlisted and helped train officers for what's going on now. Jeff is more conservative than you are, both as a Canadian and as an Israeli. Are you an Israeli citizen?
No, not at all.
Okay, well, as a Jew then.
Yeah.
But when Jeff was here, Jeff spoke about his Palestinian cousins. And how wonderfully he got along with them when he lived there. And his perception was that the problem is and remains Hamas, and the Hamas leadership. And I said, well, why don't Palestinians speak out against it? Because they're scared, because they're afraid. What was your experience living there? What is your, this is a big question and a multi-parter. What's your perspective on what's happening now, and where do you think it's headed, especially in light of the recent assassinations of leaders of Hezbollah and Hamas? Are we headed for a regional war in the Middle East that could spark a broader global conflict?
That's a nice, happy question.
Yeah, isn't it though? Yeah, but I want to hear your perspective on it because I know you're well read and I respect your opinion.
Thank you. Yeah. So look, when I was there quite a while ago. Now it was 1999, 2000. It's quite a while ago. Almost a couple of years. I was doing my research there at the time for my PhD.
What's your PhD in?
So it's in sociology, and what I studied at the time, this was the Oslo peace process was still happening. It was sort of coming to an end.
Okay.
That was an effort to try to come up with a political agreement between Israelis and Palestinians. My research was looking at Israeli and Palestinian peace and human rights organizations that were attempting to work together, like to try to do things, to try to consolidate, like to help to push through a political agreement to address issues that were going on. The experience was incredible. It was like one of the greatest experiences of my life. Could say so many things, but I'll tell one small anecdote just that sort of summarizes it. I would spend, like many hours in a day in some activity or some meeting or even a demonstration.
Where did you live? Tel Aviv?
So I mostly lived in Jerusalem, actually.
Jerusalem,
Yeah,
okay.
I spent most of my time in Jerusalem. Spent a little bit of time in the north in Israel as well, but mostly in Jerusalem. And at that time, I would also travel into the West Bank pretty easily, no problem, either by myself or with other people. And I would go there very regularly. So I would participate in various things, activities, stuff, even demonstrations, all kinds of things going on. Interviewing people, learning stuff from my research, and then I would come home into my apartment at the end of the day. I think this sort of encapsulates everything. I'd come back into my Jerusalem apartment, 7, 8 o'clock at night after a full day, and invariably I would always say to myself the same thing in my head. I would sort of say, this is absolutely amazing. I'm learning so much stuff for my research. My thesis one day will be interesting, but on the other hand, I just do not see any possibility for peace here. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think things are just actually getting worse, even though there is a process going on. So unfortunately, it's now about 24 years later. A lot has happened. But listen, we'd have to talk about it in more detail at some other point. But essentially, look, in my view, and probably your friend, it's Jeff. You said your friend Jeff would probably.
Yeah. Do you not know Jeff?
Never met him. No.
His mother was Ruth Kovacs. She was a city councilor.
Yeah. No, I don't know him.
For years.
Well,
and years
because I grew up in Edmonton. Actually, I didn't quite grow up like in the community here, so I don't quite know like all the people.
Yeah.
But
I would love to get you and Jeff in here on the show one day. That would be fun.
Yeah. We'll
let the Jews go at it. For once.
You won't have to worry about being called a Jew hater or
That's
anti-Semite or anything. No, but look, in my own view, and I'll just put it very simply, and again, we could talk more at some other point. I happen to think one thing I think that distinguishes me from a lot of my Jewish friends, colleagues, whatever, acquaintances. I happen to think that the responsibility for the conflict lies with both sides, and I happen to think that it's the easiest thing in the world to talk about Hamas, which has to be talked about. Mm-hmm. Terrible news, I think, that Yahya Sinwar was now named the political leader of Hamas. I think that just happened in the last few days or day. I think that's a very bad sign, but that's besides. Because
who is he? Hardline militant?
He was the one who masterminded October the 7th.
Okay.
Very hardline, apparently very also fundamentalist in terms, like very extreme in terms of his view of Islam as well, very rigid. I mean, look.
So, in other words, Israel and the Jews must all be destroyed?
Kinda.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. And anyway, I don't want to go into all the complexities of that. But anyway, so the point is, though, that I think that the easiest thing in the world is to talk about the things that the Palestinians do or have done that have prevented the arrival of a political agreement. I think aside from the left-wing activists, which gets a lot of attention, but I think in the places where it really needs to be talked about the most, I just don't believe that people talk at all or that much about what Israeli policy could have been a little bit different or a little bit better. And a lot of people point to Bibi Netanyahu and say that he's been a terrible prime minister, and that's not so controversial to say. I have a couple of acquaintances in Israel who I would call them kind of center conservative, but they despise Netanyahu.
What's his domestic support like for in the current context?
Well, I think there's a lot more support, for trying to finish the job,
But what does finish the job mean?
Well, that's a big question. In Israel, the big debate is there a theory? Is there a plan for after? And most people would say no. Although the most extreme right-wing elements of Netanyahu's government, I mean, their position is known. They would be just fine with full escalation as much as possible. So their position is known. As far as something that's more, let's say, in the middle, that's sort of the center of the argument right now. Like what is the end game here? What is can the fighting be ended? And the other thing, of course, that a lot of people are pissed off at Bibi about is people. And again, you don't have to be a left wing person to say this. Regular Israelis are like, Netanyahu is not doing enough for what he should do to get the hostages back. So I think that, I mean, I haven't been there, right? I'm just going by things that I read and things that I hear from people I know, but. It seems like I think the majority of Israelis would at this point support a ceasefire. Again, not necessarily knowing what comes next, but there is a strong desire to get the hostages back. And there is also, I think, a pretty strong feeling that Netanyahu is not making that a priority, and people are pretty pissed off about that.
Do you think the term genocide is being misused? I know that's a hard. Yes, Avi. It's an important question.
You know what? I think it depends how you look at it. I think early on I had some trouble with the term. I think at this point, I think that if we say Gaza as a single place, I think I could call it like genocide adjacent. Like I mean, I could certainly say ethnic cleansing. Genocide is a very harsh term to word. There are Jewish and Israeli scholars of genocide studies in the Holocaust who say that it could very easily be, these are Jewish scholars who are experts in studying the Holocaust who say that yes, it can be called a genocide.
But if they wanted to completely wipe out the Palestinian population of Gaza, does the Israeli military not have the expertise to do that?
I think that they could do it. I don't think.
Then why aren't they? If they're genocidal, why aren't they doing it?
Well, I think it's because
it's got to be one or the other.
I think it's because, like, in my opinion, they in my opinion, again, and you'll find a lot of people disagreeing with me, especially in my community. There's just no clear policy. The policy for the longest time, in the last 15 or so years, they called it mowing the lawn, managing the conflict, every so often have some kind of an altercation, get the grass blades lower so that it'll take a longer time for them to grow back. But they would eventually come back, and then you go and you mow the lawn again. To me, that's not a viable plan. So I think they don't know what to do. And there's a lot of reasons why, and it's not easy. I'm not sitting here and saying that I have all the answers. I mean, I do have certain preferences, of course, but they're stuck. Both sides are stuck, and I think it's terrible for both sides and both people.
I want to find a happy note to go out on because we're out of time. The Edmonton Oilers is not a happy note for you necessarily because they lost. They lost in the Stanley Cup final. They're Avi's favorite team.
The Habs are my 1A. The
well,
Oilers
listen,
are my
then I want to ask you about. I think the Habs have got the makings of a really good young hockey team, and I think that they're on a significant upward trend. If 80% of their prospects pan out, they're going to be a hell of a team for a long time. I think Slavkovsky's going to be a beast.
I agree. I'm a bit impatient, I have to admit, but I am excited. If I had the time, I'd love to go to Brossard or whatever it is and watch some of these whatever training camp things that they'll be doing in about a month or whatever. Yeah, no, these players sound great. Although, there was probably, you and I did a little bit of hockey Hab stuff also, whatever, what is it?
Over lunch?
Hockey? Well, no, the Montreal hockey.
Oh, the Montreal hockey talk thing back in the day. The podcast,
It seems like there's always this, this crop of prospects and, they're going to be amazing. So, but I don't think it's the same. I think they really do have.
Yeah, I do too. They're overdue. The last time they won a Stanley Cup was the year old man Poseidon was born.
But I'm excited.
Habs,
yeah.
I'm excited. I'm afraid to admit I'm sort of ashamed to say it's only August, whatever it is, the 7th, and I'm already ready for the NHL season.
The season's going to be here in no time. If it's August, that means we're 2 months. August 7th, that means we're 2 months out from the season opener.
I'm almost ready.
2 months goes like that.
Yes, it does.
This 90 minutes went like that.
It sure did.
This was a lot of fun, Avi. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me. It was
wait, hold on.
a great time.
So that's it. We're closing off the show.
I think so. Isn't it 11:30?
Yeah, it's 11:30. So I just want to say to everybody at home, look, man, just fuck off.
I was going to say, see how we can sit down and have a civil conversation and disagree, but do so respectfully?
That's
Never mind.
Like and subscribe and fuck off.